Oh well, we'll just go. Okay, so today I want to talk about about attribution modeling and what that's all about. I was just shocked to see someone mention that marketing attribution is as old as the first digital ads in the mid 90s. Gee whiz, I wonder what we were doing before that. You know, you can go and find scientific marketing. If you go to scientificadvertising.com, if you go to scientificadvertising.com, there's a book that was written 100 years ago. And in it, it says there's no excuse for bad marketing because we've got all the answers. The direct marketers have been figuring this out, the direct mailers in those days. They've been figuring out all of the principles of good advertising for the last 40, 50 years. So 100 years ago, it was settled science. What made advertising work? What were the Claude Hopkins is the author. I highly recommend it. Scientificadvertising.com, and you can get a free PDF download. I don't make anything on that. But so the point is, the first point we want to make is that most of the people in digital marketing have no idea of the science behind this attribution topic that goes back 150 years at least. When I got started in the real science of direct marketing in 1981, my mentor, Vic Hunter, said, always test something. And we really did. We tested a lot of stuff. But the idea was that we were going to create scientifically valid experiments that would not only tell us what worked, because I think that's kind of the mission today. The mission today is we run an ad, did it pay for itself? There was an excellent article. I've listened to like 30 articles on the way up here yesterday in the car. The trouble is you can't stop. I mean, I should pull over it on the freeway and highlight the articles that really gave me some great ideas. But one of the great ideas was that, and one of the reasons that marketers have less credibility, there was an article about how now the Chief Customer Officer, which is the CCO, is a new title in the UK especially. And they're sort of pushing aside the Chief Marketing Officer, who was supposed to be the advocate for the customer. And the reason that that's happening is because the board of directors doesn't see marketing as being able to deliver scalable, repeatable ROI impact. They can't trace back the marketing efforts to increases in sales or decreases in sales in the company. And without that link, marketing has very low credibility. And I spoke on this a week or so ago, why marketing lacks credibility. And it was exactly the same as this article had said. You know, the ability to predict the future is what marketing gets paid for. And if you don't set it up right, you're not going to be able to do that. So what I learned back in the 80s was I learned that we could mail 2 different offers, every other one going to, so we had basically a test with a homogeneous group that would show us the impact of one offer versus another, one creative versus another, one list versus another. Sometimes we would do the same offer to multiple lists. There's ways to structure all kinds of science in this field. But in digital, most of the time, and in main advertising, I worked in a general ad agency for a couple of years, and they asked me, what's the difference between direct marketing and what we do? And it was a great question. It was life-changing for me, because they said, look, we do a TV commercial and more people come to the store. We get more sales. Or we do mailings. We do a mailing, a grand opening, and more people come, and we get more sales. How is it that we're not measuring? The definition was create a measurable response. We're measuring. We place an ad, sales go up. And that's kind of where we've where we stopped. And I fought with the Direct Marketing Association for about 30 years on this because, you know, I said, your definition, generate a measurable response. And mailers today, catalogers, still hold that same definition. I went around Namoa, and there's an interview on YouTube of 7 or 8 of the leaders of Namoa, and everybody said, direct marketing is generating a measurable response. Well, I would contend that in order to do firm attribution, in order to gain credibility, that's really what we're talking about. In order to demonstrate the impact of ROI, you have to set it up better than that. It's not just about bumping sales, because what if sales don't bump? Then you've learned nothing, okay? But it's about having alternatives. It's about having alternatives and having a winner and a loser. So yesterday we talked a little bit about how you should be encouraging thoughtful mistakes. Well, in direct marketing, there's always a winner and there's always a loser. And if there isn't one, then the control wins, okay? Or we retest. So first off, in attribution, before we start anything, we have to say, okay, attribution did not get started with the internet. That is a complete misunderstanding of attribution. In fact, most of what's going on the internet doesn't give you much to work with in the first place. And so that's where we want to go today. We want to say, okay, if that doesn't work, what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out the money we put in, the percentage that we have left over after we ship the goods and pay for the goods and pay for our salaries, this money, and say, what is the return, this money divided by the money that we generate. And if it's only 1-to-1, then you're not breaking even, because there's always more expenses. That's the way it goes. Wanamaker said, I know half my advertising is wasted. I only wish I knew which half. One of the biggest challenges in attribution is since we want to know the causal impact, we tend to focus either on how we first found the customer, which is more like SEO. You know, they came in and touched our website and we drop a cookie on them. Now, everything else that gets done will get attributed back to that first SEO. But was that the real causal factor? Not sure. And given that almost everybody, before they buy anything, will go look at your product on a website, what happens in that mindset is you start attributing the place that's just the most frequently visited. So with Google AdWords, you can put banner ads. You can take people who've bought before, put banner ads on ESPN or on CNN or on the biggest websites in the country. And your attribution will tend to skew toward where you're paying the money, even if that had nothing to do with the causality. The real key is, what if we subtract this in the country factor? Oops. Skew toward where you're something just popped up and I got my own voice in my ear. There we go. Stop that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about tomorrow is we're going to talk about how can we assess the causal impact so that we take the most causally valid channel and use that to gain the most insight into what's going on. The idea that we can solve the whole problem of what influenced the buy is very challenging. We'll talk more about that tomorrow too. So, you know, we had a little bit of technical challenges today up in Minnesota, but I want you to be thinking about attribution, and we're going to talk tomorrow in Minneapolis. We're going to be talking at the Doubletree west of Minneapolis. Come visit. The details are on wdma.org. That's